So let's move on to another edition of Sully Speak, the segment of the show where we play a clip from one of Mike Sullivan's press conferences and then we react to his words. This week and on this edition, we have Mike Sullivan talking about the woes of the depth scoring because in the last couple of games, it's only been the top end of the team, the top tier, the stars that have been putting the puck in the back of the net. What does Sully think about that? Here are his words after Sunday's loss to the LA Kings.
Well, we just need guys to step up and take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them, and so that's part of it. When our team's at its best, we're getting balanced scoring. We've got a balanced attack, and that's when we're at its best. And lately, that hasn't been the case, and that makes it that much more challenging to win. So, guys are going to get opportunities to have a positive impact on the game. They got to make the most of it. And, it's our job as coaches to try to put them in those positions. And we'll do our very best as well to try to help them along the way here. But, that's something that I think is obvious that we have to try to correct here.
So that's Mike Sullivan on the lack of depth scoring from the Pittsburgh Penguins team. Not only has it not been existent in the past 3 games. During this 3-game losing streak, they have scored 6 goals, 1 by Malkin, 2 by Jake Gensel, 1 by Crosby, and 2 by Brian Rust. That has been the only goal scoring. So no defensive scoring, no bottom 6 scoring. It's not been a good look for the Penguins. And obviously, you heard Sullivan just there say, when we're at our best, we're scoring on all 4 lines. Clearly, with only the top 4 players on the team scoring, the Penguins have struggled in these past 3 games.
Yeah, that's the depth scoring and the depth production is what led to a vast majority of our success in the mid 2010s, 5 years ago. You think of those guys that they're rental pieces for us usually, not rental as in half a season, but rental as in a couple seasons here and there. Those are the guys that were the Penguins' bread and butter. Nick Bonino, Carl Hagelin, Carter Rowney for a minute. I'm trying to just think of names that played on our bottom six
for a while.
UC Jokin, if you want to go way back, yeah. Now we have guys that can still do it. It's just they're not hitting the production level that we want them to be. I mean, we're absolutely toying with Kasperi Kapanen because he can't do shit anymore. Well, he should be a top 6 guy anyway.
Yeah.
But Evan Rodriguez is, like I mentioned, regressing back to kind of what we expected. Nothing. Again, we understand that it's hard when everyone's getting injured or getting scratched last minute. It's hard to fill in that kind of role, but early in the season, those quick fill-ins were the reason why we were getting wins. Like I mentioned, Evan Rodriguez had a good start. Danton Heinen, albeit at the last second scratch on Sunday, stepping up in his early portion of his tenure. Jack Gaston-Reese, Teddy Bluger, we know what they're all about, but they at least were able to shut down. Zach Aston-Reese just straight up doesn't score. But there's that. Brock McGinn has been pretty solid. Our bottom 6 had a good start to the year and has since just leveled off. Mm-hmm. And that's not ideal. Jeff Carter's had to carry the weight as the bottom 6 leader now, which, again, he's going to be, and he's not who we're here to talk about, but you want to give him some help.
Yeah, when you look at the bottom 6, there's a lot of negatives right now. Obviously, you're noticing how important Teddy Bluger is there because although he doesn't score a lot of goals, he creates a lot of opportunities. He's really good with the puck, and it's kind of underrated facet of his game because he's so good defensively and his analytical numbers are so good that people think about that. But with the puck, he's really good in the offensive zone, and that's a big detriment to this team, having him out now for still probably 5 to 7 weeks because it's only been a week since he got injured. And now you have Danton Heinen out as well. So you're missing 2 really big pieces. Heinen, probably one of the more dangerous players in the bottom 6 when it comes to actual scoring threats. But you mentioned it. Kapanen struggling. Rodriguez is ice cold. Brock McGinn has 1 goal in his last 10 games. And then who's left down there? I mean, Radim Zohorna isn't expected to come in here and be a bulk scoring guy. Dom Simone has never been that guy for the Pittsburgh Penguins, even when he was playing on the top line a couple years ago. Zach Aston-Reese had a career year last year in goals. He has 1 this season. Yeah. So the only guy in the bottom 6 right now that has really shown any offensive acumen in the past week has been Brian Boyle for his between the legs goal. And he's not a guy that you can count on for consistent goal scoring. Those guys are the Rodriguezes, the Kapanens, And when they're healthy, the Heinens and Blugers. Realistically, I count on Bluger to score 10 goals a year at this point. So I consider him a consistent point scorer and a consistent goal scorer for this team in a fourth line role. So with all of that not going well, this team is struggling right now. And you notice it at 5-on-5, they're not producing at all. All of their production is coming currently from the power play this past weekend. And honestly, if you go a little bit further, other than the third period, they struggled against Arizona as well. So things are not going great for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But like I said at the beginning of this entire episode, sky isn't falling. It's just a lull in the season.
Yeah, we're just in that mid-season rut. No big deal. We can get past it. And you mentioned guys that we can't fully judge for this because they're not supposed to be in the lineup anyway. That's the other issue here is Radim Zohorna shouldn't have even played Sunday. Had to play. Played pretty okay.
Yeah.
Brian Boyle, as much as we enjoy seeing him in the lineup, and now he's a damn staple on the fourth line with Bluger out forever and ever.
Yeah.
At least he's, like you mentioned, doing pretty good. We're enjoying watching him play. The team loves him. And the fans love him. It's good to have him on this team. He's been solid. You can't complain there. And Dom Simone, just not supposed to be in this lineup. It's hard to really have a discussion about the bottom six when most of those guys aren't supposed to be there anyway. But if they're there, do something. That was one of the beauties about last year is we would call guys up from the taxi squad, and next thing you know, we're hooting and hollering for them to stay in the lineup during the playoffs over guys like Evan Rodriguez, who we had to, shoehorn into the lineup during the regular season.
Yeah.
I think back to Frederick Gaudreau. We don't have that sort of guy anymore who can step up and shock you. Zohorna's supposed to do it. He just hasn't yet. Simone, we know what to expect. Nothing. And, well, we're getting that. Yeah. It's disappointing seeing we're mentioning McGinn and Heinen and Kapanen mostly as doing nothing. Sure, we're bashing on Kapanen, but we just expected more than – he has 24 points. That's not terrible, but we just expected more. That's all it is. We just expected way more.
His numbers are a production of a third-line player, but we expected him to be a top-line to second-line player.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We expected way more than what we're getting. I don't hate 24 points for Kasperi Kapanen. I don't.
I do, considering the way he's got them. But we'll talk about that in the next segment. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
We'll talk about that in the next segment because we're actually going to talk about potential trades for Kasperi Kapanen because that is now something that has come up on the radar for a lot of people in the city of Pittsburgh. But to finish off this segment here, you're already talking about it a little bit. Let me bring up the roster and the lineup from Sunday's game. Obviously, Mike Sullivan seeing this, and he mentioned that in the little clip that we played of him saying, listen, all we can do is give them the opportunities, and that's what we're going to try to do. And that's what you could see that he was doing on Sunday, trying to switch the lines around, trying to get certain people going. Obviously, he's not going to touch the Gensel, Crosby, Rust line. That's been the most productive line for the Penguins basically the last 3 seasons. Evgeny Malkin at 5-on-5 has kind of plateaued a little bit from where he came off dominant early on. That's why they give him a guy like Brock McGinn, who's going to be able to forecheck well, create turnovers, get him an opportunity, and throw in Evan Rodriguez there, who they're going to try to get him going again and get him to the level that he was early on in the season, because even Rodriguez, where he was at the beginning of the season, is better than a Kasperi Kapanen, where he was at his best this season. So to get Rodriguez right, I think that's a good decision to get him up there. Third line, this is where it gets interesting. Zach Aston-Reese, Jeff Carter, and what was supposed to be Danton Heinen, which ended up being Radim Zohorna. That's where, to me, that's the biggest tell of where Kapanen is right now. And I know we have a whole segment devoted to him next segment, but the fact that Heinen goes out and your response is not to put Kapanen up in the third line with Carter and Aston-Reese, but to put Zohorna, who wasn't supposed to play, who was expected to be sitting there eating nachos in a suit, throw him on the third line, keep Kapanen with Boyle and Simone on the fourth line, and only give him 6 minutes of ice time at 5-on-5. That is a true testament to where Kasperi Kapanen is at in the eyes of Mike Sullivan, in my opinion.
This lineup just doesn't look fun. I look at the whole lineup. You focus on the third line. I look at the second and wonder what the hell happened, because clearly Kapanen's supposed to be up there with Malkin. That's where he's supposed to be. That's where he was last year and played phenomenally. Mm-hmm. And Zucker's obviously hurt, but at the same time, replacing with Brock McGinn is not ideal at the moment, given what we've seen McGinn do, which is be a solid bottom six producer. Mm-hmm. So that second line gives me so much pause. I can't believe that. Third line, again, Carter and Heinen, before Heinen being kicked out of the lineup, it's not terrible. I don't hate seeing Carter and Heinen together. I think that's where, if I was to look at my preseason predictions, you swap McGinn and Heinen, and that's exactly where I had them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so brutal looking at this lineup right now because of injuries and just bad luck. But those wingers don't make me excited.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dom Simone isn't fun anymore. Kapanen on the fourth line is just disappointing me. McGinn's a good player. I just don't expect to see him on the second line with Malkin. You're right, though. He couldn't create opportunities, but it's only temporary. Aston Reese on the third, not fun because he's a fourth liner. That's all there is to it. Looking at these wingers is so unfun. I don't hate Rodriguez on the second because of what he's done earlier this year, but he's done nothing recently. Like you mentioned, ice cold. So I struggle to look at this lineup and feel excited.
Yeah.
And that really sucks to say. I just look at that first line and expect them to carry. You can't do that.
No. And you see what happens when you try to do that. The Pittsburgh Penguins have lost 3 in a row.
Yeah. This is so unfun.
Well,
goodness.
When I
look
at
fully
this,
healthy lineup is a ton of fun. To be fair. Like a fully healthy Penguins lineup is so much fun. And we saw what it can do. The closest we've been to full health this year, we went on a hell of a winning streak. So this team is a fun team when everyone's there. We just need to stop hitting this bad luck of being hurt, having these ice cold players in Rodriguez and Kapanen. We figured that out. Like we'll talk about Kapanen in a minute. We figure out the Rodriguez and Kapanen situation. We get everyone healthy again. This is a hell of a fun team.
Yeah.
Cut the fat. That's what we have to do.
Well, I think when you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins and you look at this lineup, the reason I circled the bottom 6 is because that is so decimated right now. But looking at this is the first time that we've seen, or at least that I can recollect, that Mike Sullivan has been this liberal with changing his lines. He is usually like, I will switch one thing here, one thing there, but realistically, he likes his pairs. And we've always mentioned this. He likes his pairs. And usually it was, Gansel Crosby, Malkin Kapanen, Aston Reese and Bluger. Well, he's forced out of that. And also, who was on Malkin's wing earlier this week? It was Heinen and Kapanen. So he doesn't know what's going to work right now with Evgeny Malkin because Danton Heinen, he's been struggling since he came back into the lineup. Kasperi Kapanen, he's just an anchor. And we'll talk about that. You know what? Let's cut to break, end this segment, take a breath, come back in the next segment after we pay the bills a little bit, and let's talk about a potential Kasperi Kapanen trade because that's where we're at this point. We're talking about potentially trading a guy that we expected at the beginning of the season to potentially be, I'm saying potential way too many times, but to be one of the best players on this team. So we'll be right back after this.